Okay, so we are now in the middle of Ma'ariv, or towards the end of the evening service of Arvis, the evening service. Now we're at the Amida. We've talked about Kaddish and we've talked about Amidas before, so we're going to just focus on what is unique in the evening Amida, something that we're not going to find in any of the other Amidas, and that is on page 125 in our Siddur. We find a little Havdalah. So on Saturday night, Motzei Shabbos, or at the end, the conclusion of a holiday. So at the end of a holiday or Shabbos, when work is forbidden, so we have to recite Havdalah. The word Havdalah means separation, a divide, and we're familiar with the Havdalah that we recite over a cup of wine and with a candle and with spices on Saturday night. But before we get to that Havdalah, we also have the Havdalah in the evening service, and this is the official separation between Shabbos and the weekday. So before, when Shabbos is out, so really you're not supposed to start working until you make Havdalah, until you recite Havdalah, until you make a separation between Shabbos and the weekday, or between the festival and the weekday. So there's a little abridged version of Havdalah when one says Baruch Hamavdil ben Kodesh l'chol. That's the conclusion of the Saturday night Havdalah. Baruch Hamavdil, blessed is the one who separates ben Kodesh, between the holy l'chol and the profane, or the mundane, and so that would create that separation. But the first time we do that really is during the Amida of the evening service. So it's done during the blessing of Atachayin. So if you recall, when we talked about the Amida, so there are 19 blessings. The first 3 and the last 3 are fixed and the same. And the middle blessings, so during the weekdays, is one fixed set of blessings. And during Shabbos and festivals, that is a middle blessing that changes depending on the day and the prayer. But on Saturday night, so we're reciting the regular weekday Amida, and we have this insertion here in the blessing of Ata Chaynin Lodam Das, the first of the intermediate blessings, the first of the middle blessings, the blessing where we ask God for wisdom and understanding. Why is it placed here? So one reason is sort of technical, because since the middle blessings contain requests and petitions for our personal needs, we know that on Shabbos we're not supposed to ask for our personal needs. So if we want to start asking for our needs, so we need to first make Havdalah. We first have to say, just like I mentioned before, we say Baruch Hamavdil. We can't start asking. It's like sort of the first weekday thing we do after Shabbos is to start asking for our needs in the Amidah. So therefore, technically, when should we make that Havdalah? Make it right at the beginning before you start asking for your needs. So right in the first blessing of the middle blessings, we recite the Havdalah. But a more philosophical, deeper reason for it, and this is because it's debated amongst the sages exactly what the position of this insertion should be. And the halacha is that it's put in this blessing. Why? Because im ein das Havdalah minayin. If you don't have understanding, then how would you be able to differentiate? How would you be able to have discernment and separation? Right? So this idea that we have the capacity to identify holy and profane, good and evil, light and dark, and so on, that all comes from a discernment, from an understanding, from wisdom. And so therefore, it's in this blessing where we ask God to grant us wisdom that we recognize that it's wisdom that gives us the ability to separate, and B, the wisdom of God who makes these separations and distinctions. So that's why we have it here in this blessing of Ata Chayne. Okay, today is the 20th of Av. We're recording this on the 20th of Av, which, as I mentioned, is the yahrzeit of Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Schneerson, the Rebbe's father. And so I want to share in his merit and his honor, in honor of his yahrzeit, to share a little thought of his as it relates to this blessing, to Ata Chayne Antanu, to this Havdalah that we recite in davening. So we say Avinu Malkeinu, right, towards the end of it, our Father, our King, bring upon us the approaching days in peace, devoid of all sin, cleansed of all wrongdoing, and devoted to the fear of you, right? So that's the last words of this Havdalah, right? Bring us these days in peace, right? Bring upon us the approaching days in peace, devoid of all sin, cleansed of all wrongdoing, and devoted to the fear of you. Okay, so what does this relate? So he talks at a few places about different elements and the different allusions here, but let's just do something simple. He says like this: we ask God to bring us these days in peace, right? We're about to enter the work week, and during the week, we know what separates the week from Shabbos, the everyday from the holy day, is that on Shabbos, everything is perfect, everything as is. You prepare, it is as is, right? Everything you do, you prepare before Shabbos. Shabbos comes in, and everything is perfect exactly as it needs to be. There's no tinkering, there's no perfecting, there's no touching, there's no work to be done. During the week, on the other hand, we're constantly tinkering, we're constantly perfecting, we're constantly uplifting. And so this is what's called in Kabbalah avodas habirurim, the service of of elevating the sparks of divine energy that are scattered throughout the mundane and the ordinary and the everyday. So we need to elevate those sparks by accessing them. We ignite them and we reunite them with their source. Okay. So that's the concept that why we're engaged in everyday ordinary behavior 6 out of 7 days of the week is because we're elevating the sparks of godliness that is found in creation, in the physical arena. Now, generally, we regard this concept of elevating the sparks as a battle. It's a battle. It's, when you're engaging with the mundane, with the material, so there's always a battle. There's a pull, there's a desire to engage and to indulge in the physical world for your own pleasure, for your own benefit, for your own self-aggrandizement, whatever motivation you might have, right? And so that's something that could pull you down. Person eats food, and so you can eat the food to elevate the spark of godliness in it, which is why we're hungry in the first place and why we have to eat. Or you can eat food as a degrading experience where it draws you down, it brings you down, it lowers you even lower, than debases you even more so than the food itself. And so there's that battle that wages that we wage with trying to access these sparks. So he says, we say in this blessing, we say, bring these days upon us in peace. That our engagement with the material world and our elevating of the spark should be done in peace. What does it mean to be done in peace? The difference between a battle and peace is that in battle, sometimes when you're in combat, sometimes you lose. Sometimes you have a bad day on the battlefield, and you might be injured, God forbid, in battle, right? Or sometimes part of strategy is that you give a little bit to gain a lot, right? Sometimes you lose a little battle to win the war. Right? So either way, when you're engaged in battle, you become vulnerable to the other side, to the enemy. And so he says, we ask God when we recite this prayer and we're entering into the week, we say we're about to engage in our everyday week in serving God in the material world. So we're asking it should be in peace, not through battle. And what happens when it's in peace? So when it's in peace, meaning that that peace, true peace represents sort of bringing together opposites and disparate entities and ideas and views, bringing them all together where they coexist together in peace and harmony, right? So when we can engage the material world in peace, that means we can elevate it in a way that's not through battle, not through combat, not through debate, not through any kind of tension in that regard. And automatically, when we do it in that way, so then we are devoid of all sin and cleansed of all wrongdoing, because in such a way, then there's no room for any kind of sin, right? We don't have the disadvantage of potentially losing a battle, and we don't have the strategy of having to give a little to get, because it's all done in a manner of peace. And so may that be the way we engage with our animal soul and the world around us, through peace.